So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Wore Reborn in Bleach, so let's start the series. Karakura town. This could be interesting, muttered a man that looked no older than 20 with waist-length black hair with blonde highlights that had shoulder-length bangs framing the sides of his face, covering his right eye entirely as he looked down. In the small town in Japan, he wore a form-fitting black shirt with long open sleeves, black pants, and simple black running shoes. He also wore a necklace that had a deep green gem on it. The man was carrying a small backpack which seemed to contain on a scroll of an unknown nature with small calligraphy and supplies at the side pocket. This man was Naruto Uzumaki, a wandering immortal sage that had been traveling the world for longer than he cared to remember. Naruto became immortal at the end of the Fourth Shinobi World War through a combination of means, and knowing this began traveling throughout the world and witnessed the changes that took place over time. Each century he found a new place to call home and used henge, transformation, to change his appearance to match other people so none would suspect much. He spent much of his life keeping to himself, not having it in him to watch someone grow old and die. So he simply made good friends that he stayed with till their ding dies. Although oddly he saw their spirits when they left their bodies, and when they did had been shocked to find Naruto could see and hear them, so he would stay and chat with them before they simply didn't come back to chat, almost as if they had moved on. He accepted this as at times one did need to move on in life. In his many years of travel, Naruto's natural need to learn things continued as he had studied under many people in his life. He had met sages that oddly spoke of the true power of the spirit. They were ones who saw spirits like he did. They spoke of those in black kimonos helping those gone to pass into the next life and find peace. Naturally, Naruto had discovered their words to be true as he found out that after many years the term shinigami came to any wearing the black robe and sword at their side, who helped wandering spirits but also strange creatures with horrible white masks. A few of the creatures had seemed to be attracted to him for some strange reason but were easily dealt with when Naruto utilized the Yin chakra, which he discovered affected the white masked monsters. Naruto continued to do so for some time until he saw one of Theseus' shinigamis wielding a daisho sword pair, and drew their swords and changed its shape by calling out a name. He never caught the name that was called, but he looked at the person whose swords changed, becoming a pair of huge, heavily curved, black Chinese scimitars with silver edges with long red tassels dangling from the end. After many years of meditation, Naruto was able to develop a spirit sense, and he could feel the connection from the shinigami to their blade. He found that both were a part of each other in sync and both offering power to the other. After seeing it, Naruto decided to look into his own soul and see if he could find the blade within himself, and to his own surprise he did. The blade was peculiar, as were the versatility of its ability, which Naruto could only grin at everything he could do with it while fighting, and later his grin turned into a broad smile when he discovered that he could use his chakra with the spirit blade, and as such Naruto was always carrying it from that day 1,200 years ago. It was shortly after discovering his spirit blade Naruto came across what looked like a war zone. The ground was scorched and bodies were laying everywhere. A good portion of them were burned to the point it was hard to confirm if they were human. He continued looking around when he sensed something over the nearby hill and ran to the top of it to see a shinigami fighting what looked like a human army, but noticed that this particular shinigami was wearing something over what he saw all the other shinigami wore, and reminded him of the kage robes. But what drew his attention was the spirit blade that the shinigami wielded. It was engulfed in flames, and even at the distance Naruto was, he could feel the heat coming from the blade and would have continued looking at the blazing inferno that engulfed the blade, but was distracted when the flames around suddenly vanished, leaving only the shinigami, a little scorched blade. Naruto would have examined the blade further but was distracted when the shinigami said Bankai, Zanka no Tachi, long sword of the remaining flame. Naruto stayed atop the hill and watched as the shinigami and human fought each other in what was quickly becoming apparent a death match. He only stayed to watch the fight was that every time that the shinigami cut something with his scorched blade, a tremendous fire would flare up, incinerating what was cut. Naruto watched in interest, and as the lone shinigami was proving to be, in Naruto's opinion, Hell's guardian in human form, as the shinigami burned his way through those that stood in his way. Naruto watched as the miniature war continued on until there was only the shinigami, and what Naruto believed to be the human's leader were the only ones left. With the shinigami was standing over the leader and was glaring at him and said some things Naruto couldn't hear before turning around and walking away, where Naruto just stood there for a few more seconds before he turned and walked away and continued his wandering. After many years his wandering and his spirit sense had led him to the small town of Karakura, which for such a small town had quite a bit of spiritual energy. Although quite a few had tried to hide themselves, it seemed. Offering a mental shrug, he went to find the local state agent, and find himself a place to live. He found a nice apartment that was close to the local high school where he had just passed the entrance exam and would begin taking classes the next day. One might ask where Naruto had the money to pay for things like this, which would be answered by him telling you that good memories make an excellent story, as he had turned his life and all his many adventures into a series of books that had become famous wherever they were sold, but no one truly knew what the author looked like, as Naruto never let it be known. He had republished his godfather's work along with some of his own stories and henged into the old pervert. When he went to the publisher, Naruto mainly did it to honor the pervert's memory, and for extra money cause. Even Naruto wouldn't deny how much money they made and would always shake his head whenever he saw someone reading the little orange book, X. Looks as though this could be an interesting place to live for a while, Naruto said to himself, walking the streets at night like he had done so many times in other towns. Streets had a different feel to them at night, a tranquil feeling when no one was around. They allowed him to see how the town felt with no distractions. When Naruto felt a pulse of energy with his spirit sense and sped off to find the source. Shortly after, he was in front of a residential house where he saw a young petty-looking woman leaning against a lamp post who had short dark hair, and her shinigami clothes turned completely white. The more interesting sight for Naruto was the teenager, as he was now dressed in shinigami clothes, holding a ridiculously large zanpakuto which he used to kill the nearby hollow one with ease. Well, seems like things will get much more interesting around here, and I have a feeling that the boy will be at the center of it, Naruto spoke softly to himself. Yeah, you should be happy that it's not you this time, though something tells me that what that boy is going to be a part of will be more dangerous than what you attracted, said a deep masculine voice that only Naruto could hear. Before Naruto could respond, he sensed a presence a few feet behind him and turned to see a man with the green and white bucket hat looking directly at him for a few seconds before his eyes widened slightly when he realized that Naruto could see him. Well, isn't this a pleasant surprise? It appears that there was more than a single human that could see spirits. I have a few questions I want to ask. You wouldn't mind following me after I finish with my original business, would you? The stranger said. Naruto looked at the man. Well, Kuruma, do you think we should go with this guy? He could gives us the information that has been eluding me ever since I found out that I have the same type of energy that those shinigami seem to have, Naruto said to the giant multi-tailed fox. Might as well, even if this guy did attack you, he knows absolutely nothing about the abilities that you have, so it would be suicide, Kuruma replied. Naruto looked at the strange man. Sure, I'll answer your questions so long as you answer mine, Shinigami, Naruto said to the man, having him gain a shocked expression. You even know I'm a Shinigami? I must say you definitely intrigue me. My name is Kisuke Urahara, Kisuke said, slightly shocked that the human before him knew what he was. Naruto Uzumaki. And if you think of making a fishcakes comment or joke, I'll show you just how much a maelstrom I actually am, Naruto said to Kisuke, which made him chuckle, and pulled out a fan and held it out in front of his mouth. I would never think of doing something like that, Naruto-san. If you could just wait right here until I finish my original business with Miss Kachiki, then we'll head somewhere where we can have a nice chat, Kisuke said before walking towards the small petite girl Naruto could now identify as Kachiki. Naruto stood there and watched as Kisuke was having a conversation with the girl when he helped the girl up and started walking back towards Naruto. Now, Naruto-san, if you would please follow me, we can kill two birds with one stone, or so they say, Kisuke said with a goofy grin on his face as Naruto walked in time with the small group, where Rukia was looking at Naruto in curiosity and suspicion as he walked with the two of them. Naruto walked along with Kisuke and Rukia and noticed that the girl had been staring at him since he started walking with them, and became annoyed at her, and without even turning to look at her, is there something that you wish to say or ask me, little Shinigami? Naruto asked Rukia, startling her. And nothing really, I was just curious as to why there was another Shinigami stationed here. I was told that this was a solo assignment, I wasn't told that I would have backup. And my name is Rukia Kabiki, not little Shinigami, Rukia said proudly, as even though in her powerless state she could feel his Ryatsu, although she couldn't measure how much he possessed. I'm not a Shinigami, nor am I with Kisuke Urahara, Naruto said to Rukia again without turning to look at her as they continued to get closer to wherever Kisuke was leading them to. Well, if you're not a Shinigami and you're not with that guy, then who are you? Rukia said, pointing to Urahara. Even though she had her suspicions, she wanted to hear it from the mysterious guy walking with them. It's simple, I'm human, Naruto said simply before looking at Kasuke. So how much longer until we get to the place you're leading us to, Kasuke Urahara inquired Naruto, as he was getting bored and impatient. It's not that much farther, Naruto-san, Kasuke said with that same gawky grin hidden behind his fan. He looked back at Rukia and chuckled at her gob-smacked expression on her face from finding out that Naruto was human. X. This is a candy store, said a slightly confused Naruto, looking as the small shop getting the scent of sweet things in his nosy. Why yes it is. I'm just a humble little shopkeeper, Kasuke said with his goofy grin getting wider and on Naruto's nerves while at the same time giving Kasuke a look that said yeah right. So what is the business that you need to finish with the little shinigami before we can get to ours, Naruto said, ignoring Rukia's outcry of calling her a little shinigami again. Getting her a jugai that'll allow her to interact with humans, Kasuke said as the door to the shop opened up, revealing a tall, muscular, lightly tan-skinned man wearing a tall, muscular, lightly tan-skinned man. Boss, you're back. I have the jugai from Miss Kuchiki ready, and Tezai was saying when he noticed Naruto and the reatsu that he had. It seems that you've brought an extra with you. Please come in while I prepare some tea, Tezai said, deciding to make the man's short stay comfortable. Thank you, Tezai. Now if the two of you would please follow me, we can get Miss Kuchiki here sorted out. Then move on at more interesting matters, Kasuke said as he took off his getta's shoes and walked inside while motioning for Rukia and Naruto to follow him. Naruto followed Kasuke inside his shop and noticed that Rukia followed as well, but stopped at the entrance and sat down on the floor. Naruto instead took off his shoes and followed Kasuke to another room where a table was, where he saw Kasuke sit down and sat down as well. Then he took off his backpack and set it next to him. I'm guessing that you'll give this jugai to the little shinigami after we've had our talk, Naruto asked Kasuke, seeing the man in front of him wasn't moving. No, Tezai, the man from early will do that right now. I'm much more interested in you now. So how long have you been able to see spirits, let alone shinigami? Kasuke asked the most obvious question. That answer is a complicated one. My body is unique. Certain events during my young life lead to me becoming immune to the ravages of time. To simply put it, I don't age. And with my life now no longer having an expiration date on it, I simply continued on with my life, and with time I started to see spirits. I actually didn't know of shinigami until I had met with some sages that talk about the true power of the spirit, as they called it. They also had the ability to see spirits, which included shinigami. So since I've answered one of your questions, I think it's only right that you now answer one of mine, Naruto said after he finished his long explanation to Kasuke. Kasuke just looked at Naruto in shock when he was told that Naruto was immortal. You're immortal? I didn't think that it was possible for humans to achieve that. That's fair enough, I guess. So then what questions do you have for me? Kasuke said to Naruto in disbelief. Now all different sets of questions were going through his head. Naruto said nothing for a while as he was trying to decide which of his questions that he wanted to ask before. It's hard trying to decide which of my questions that I want answered first, so instead I'll ask you a few questions all at once, and in return you can ask multiple questions. Sound fair to you? Naruto said to Kasuke, who thought on it for a second before nodding. Alright then, what's the energy that all shinigami seem to possess called? Are there any other ways that shinigami can use that energy? And for my last question, what is the place where shinigami come from? Naruto asked Kasuke the questions that he considered the most important at the time. You can even sense the energy. I must say you continue to surprise me, Uzumaki-san, and those questions I can answer easy enough. The energy that everyone, not just shinigami, have is called Riryoku, spiritual power. And shinigami can utilize Riryoku into a set of skills that they use for combat. They're called Zanjutsu, swordsmanship, Hakuda, hand-to-hand combat, Ho-Ho, fast movement, and Kido, demon way. Each of the 4 combat skills have several techniques that one can learn while progressing through them. And as for where the shinigami come from, it's a place called the Soul Society. It's where most of the souls dwell until they're reincarnated into the human world. It's commonly referred to by humans as the afterlife, Kasuke explained to Naruto, as he watched him take all the information in and gave him a minute. Now I believe it's my turn, Uzumaki-san, and really the only question I have at the moment is how did you become immortal? Naruto just sighed when Kasuke asked him that particular question and brought the pack that was next to him and pulled out a scroll and opened it up, revealing several circles with kanji written in the center of them. Naruto put his hand over the one that had the kanji for shinobi, and unsealed the contents, which turned out to be another scroll. After wrapping up the original scroll, Naruto opened up the new scroll to find that it was exactly the same as the other one's, circles with kanji written in them. This time Naruto went over to a circle that said immortal and unsealed what was inside, which this time turned out to be what looked like a simple journal, and handed it to Kisuke while leaving the scroll open. Inside that journal I've written down how I became like I am, and I prefer the word eternal. Immortal makes one think I can't die, which I most certainly can, Naruto said to Kisuke as he watched him read through the journal's pages and saw his eyes widening when he reached the end of Naruto's journal entry, where Kisuke then looked up and at Naruto in shock and opened his mouth to say something but was beaten by Naruto. I can assure you, Kisuke, that everything written down in that journal is true. Kisuke looked at Naruto in shock, then looked down at the journal, then back to Naruto. I must say that the information in this journal is something I know a few individuals would stop at nothing to get their hands on, in you, though there is something near the end of your entry that has me wondering, how many are there? Kisuke asked Naruto while looking at him intently. Naruto chuckled at Kisuke's question while mentally wondering just how much information he should reveal to the man before he raised up 3 fingers to Kisuke's face, slightly shocking him. Well, Kisuke, that's 2 questions. You have 1 more to go before it's my turn, Naruto said to Kisuke while leaning on the table in front of him. Kisuke only nodded while continuing to think about everything that he just learned before pushing all the questions buzzing around his inside of his head to the back of his mind for latter. Yes, I suppose I do have 1 more question, and it pertains to some of the information written in that journal, the type of energy that you call chakra, he said as he watched Naruto move his hand over the scroll again and stopped at the circle that said beginners and unsealed it, revealing 5 different scrolls that Nin, Gen, Tai, Ken, and chakra written on them. Naruto picked up the one that said chakra and handed it to Kisuke. Inside that scroll is a detailed explanation on what chakra is and what everything that one can do with it. The other scrolls also contain information on skill sets that you can use chakra with, sort of similar to use shinigami, Naruto said to Kisuke as he opened the scroll up and began reading the explanation on what chakra was. After reading through it, Kisuke rolled it back up, then grabbed the Nin scroll where he skimmed over it until he came to a section that said Bushin, clone, and took a closer look at it where there was an actual list that Naruto could do or have seen. Among them were Mizu Bunshin, water clone, Moku Bunshin, wood clone, right Kage Bunshin, lightning release, shadow clone, Iwa Bunshin, rock clone, and Kage Bunshin, shadow clone. I must say, Naruto-san, the abilities that you're able to do are very similar to the offensive abilities of Kido. But these Bushins that are written down in here, I can picture what most of them can do just by their name, but the Kage Bushin, that one I'm not exactly sure what it does. Would you mind if you demonstrate it for me so I have a better understand of all these Bushin variants? Kisuke asked Naruto after reading the Bushin listed down. Naruto chuckled at how he imagined Kisuke would react when he saw what he was about to do. Naruto raised his hands together in front of him. The index and middle fingers of both of his hands joined together in a cross and calmly said Kage Bushin no Jutsu, and after a puff of smoke, sitting next to Naruto was an exact duplicate of himself, which left Kisuke completely wide-eyed and shocked to the point where he dropped his fan. After a couple of minutes to collect himself, Kisuke picked his fan up and closed it. Well, I must say, Naruto-san, you really are the most surprising fellow I've ever met. Judging by how the Kage Bushin technique was described, it was easy to conclude that the technique creates clones of what I assumed was the person that initiated the technique, but with that Kage Bushin I assumed that the technique involved shadows, but it actually creates a complete undistinguishable copy of the original. Kisuke said and would have said more but was interrupted by Naruto. Actually, Kisuke, the 2 of us in front of you right now are both Kage Bushins. The actual original is waiting back at his apartment. If you wish to know, he'll be coming by tomorrow. Once he gets the information I've gained, he'll want to see if he can learn the shinigami combat skills, Naruto said as he once again enjoyed the completely shocked look that came across Kisuke's face when he was told that he had been talking to a clone the entire time. You mean the one I've been talking to has been a clone the entire time? What I don't understand is what reason would you have to use this method just to interact with others? Kisuke asked Naruto after he had gotten over his shock. The Kage Bushin, Naruto just chuckled, which then turned into a soft laugh. Like I said, the original will be coming by tomorrow to see if he can learn you shinigami combat skills, and when you meet him face to face you'll understand why you're talking to a Kage Bushin. Kisuke Urahara, if you have any more questions, now would be the time to ask them. If not, then I'll leave those beginner scrolls with you so you can learn the basics of what each of the arts that use chakra, Naruto said, and saw Kisuke thinking for a couple of seconds before he shook his head. Very well, if you don't have any more questions, then the original Naruto will come by tomorrow, so please have either the necessary material or teachers ready. Now if you'll excuse me, it's getting late, and I'm attending school tomorrow at someplace called Karakura High. Of course, when I say me I mean another Kagebushin. Good day, Kisuke Urahara, the KB Naruto said before the other clone. His bag and the scroll that laid it open on the table disappeared in puffs of smoke, leaving Kisuke by himself with the unopened scrolls on the table. Kisuke looked at where KB Naruto disappeared into smoke along with the clone in shock. The only thing that remained were the scrolls that KB Naruto unsealed, and shook his head to clear his confusion. So many things are going through my mind from everything that I learned from the man, but for now I need to contact Yoruichi, Kisuke said as got up and went through his house looking for Tensai apartment somewhere in Karakura town. Naruto Uzumaki was about to go to sleep when he received the memories from his Kagebushin and started to chuckle, which caused one of the women in his bed to awaken. Naruto, is there something that's keeping you from us? The woman said sensually. Naruto again chuckled to himself. I just received information from my Kagebushin. Apparently it was stumbled upon by a shinigami, Naruto said, gaining a shocked look from the woman's face before continuing. The shinigami was surprised to see that a human was capable of seeing them, so after a small talk the Kagebushin and another shinigami followed after him to a small candy shop, where after a small discussion the Kagebushin and the shinigami began to explain the basics to each of our kinds' combat abilities along with a couple of other informative facts. I'll be going to see him personally tomorrow to see if I'm able to learn their combat skills, Naruto said to the woman before smiling. If you want, you can come with me, as I'm sure that he would be very interested in meeting another person that's able to use chakra. The woman just giggled. Sure thing, Naruto, and now come back to bed, the woman said while doing the come here motion with her index finger, where Naruto willingly followed the woman's command and slid under the covers and snuggled tightly with the woman. Night, Naruto, the woman said as she drifted off to sleep using Naruto's chest as her pillow. Naruto just smiled at the woman sleeping on his chest before laying his head on his own pillow. Good night, Mei-chan. Naruto opened his eyes to find that morning had already arrived and looked down to see that Mei was still sleeping on his chest, and shook his head and glanced at the clock and saw that he needed to get up and started to softly shake Mei. Mei was annoyed that someone was disrupting her sleep on her warm pillow, then opened her eyes to see that it was Naruto shaking her, making her annoyance disappear. On Naruto, and why'd you wake me up? I was having the nicest dream involving you, me, and some honey, she said as she licked her lips as a particular thought came to her mind. Naruto just shook his head at what he heard, then smiled deviously, and looked at Mei. Well, if you want, we could act this dream of yours out later tonight, he said to her, while he leaned forward and seductively licked her neck, causing her to softly moan. When he pulled away, she pouted. You're not being fair, Naruto, you can't do something like that. Then suddenly stop, Mei said as she got up off the bed, letting the covers fall off her body, revealing her to be completely naked, and walked in the bathroom. Shortly after she entered, the sound of water running could be heard where she poked her head out. Not joining me, Naruto? Naruto shook his head. Normally I would, but then we would never get to Kisuke's, not to mention I need to send a Kagebushin so that it can go to school, Naruto said, and rolled his eyes when he said school, causing Mei to giggle, knowing he completely detested school. Before going back to her shower, Naruto got up from his bed, revealing him to also be naked, where he walked over to the bathroom and grabbed a spar towel, then stepped inside the bathroom and closed the door behind him. He noticed that the shower was already covered in steam, blocking his view of Mei's wet, naked body. He used the steam created from the shower to give himself a sweat-on shower by gathering the water above his head and letting it slowly wash over him like a waterfall. After he was done, he shook his head to get off the excess water before he used the Katon affinity to evaporate most of the water off of his body, then wiped the rest off with the towel, then wrapped it around his waist as he walked out to his drawers and picked out his clothes. After getting dressed in what the KB Naruto wore yesterday, he walked out of the bedroom and into the kitchen, where he created a couple of Kagebushin, one, where one started to prepare breakfast and the other, clone's lunch, and the other used henge, 2, to change into Karakura High's uniform, where it then proceeded to sit down at the table after all that particular clone needed to eat to keep from puffing away. Then the original Naruto sat down at one of the 2 remaining seats. Shortly after, Mei came down wearing the same thing she wore during her time as Mizukage in the shinobi age and sat down next to original Naruto, waiting for the KB of Naruto to finish cooking. So Naruto, would you mind explaining what we're going to be doing once we get to this Kisuke's place, she asked, wondering just what he planned exactly. Naruto smiled slightly. That's quite easy, Mei-chan. We're going over to Kisuke's to see if it's possible for us to learn shinigami combat styles. In return, we'll provide Kisuke with more information on our shinobi skills. I've already given him a beginner's set of scrolls that'll introduce him to each art, nothing too revealing, Naruto said before gaining a devious smirk, although I think that for him to fully understand what a Kekkei Genkai, bloodline limit, is you'll need to demonstrate for Kasuke, Naruto said, now chuckling and causing Mei to chuckle along with him, knowing that Kasuke will probably pass out from shock. The KB Naruto finished cooking the food while the original was talking with Mei and had set their food down, then turned back and started to make lunch for the Kage Bushin that had to go to school. After the clone that was cooking food finished and put it in a bento, it puffed away and the uniformed Naruto, 3, grabbed it and walked out the front door, followed closely by Naruto and Mei as they made their way down the street together until Naruto turned down a different street and continued until he came to the same spot that his Kage Bushin had first met with Kasuke and followed that same path that Kasuke took, with Mei following behind him all the way. This is a candy store, Mei said in slight confusion at seeing the place where this Kasuke guy lives. Naruto chuckled at what Mei said. I had the same reaction when I first saw it, but then again you wouldn't expect anything from someone that owns a candy store, would you? Naruto said as he walked inside of the store and got a nod from Mei. Even with their shinobi training they would never expect a candy store owner to be dangerous. With Kasuke and friends, Kasuke was sitting at the table that he spoken to the Kage Bushin of the man that he was currently waiting for to arrive and kept himself busy by reading the scrolls that the clone left last night. Sitting to his left was Tensai, as he had met Naruto if only briefly the same night that Kasuke did, and thought that it might be better to have another slightly familiar face around. Sitting to his right and at his request, more like begging, to be in human form was Yoruichi Shihoin, a slender, dark-skinned woman of average height, with golden-colored eyes and long purple hair that she keeps in a ponytail. She was wear a black, backless, sleeveless undershirt with an orange overshirt with 2 white straps on each should, a large beige sash around her waist, and black stretch pants. So Kasuke, who's this Naruto guy anyway? He must really interest you if you actually begged me to be in human form when I meet him, Yoruichi said as she was getting bored waiting for the guy that had interested Kasuke, and in all honesty she was interested to meet this Naruto guy since she herself read the scrolls that he had left behind. Now Yoruichi-san, you'll find that out when he gets here. Besides, I thought that this would be more fun for you besides, Kasuke said, and the next second he heard the door to his shop slide open. He's here. Naruto and Mei had walked in and both took off their shoes and in Mei's case her shin guards as well. When Naruto heard Kasuke's muffled "he's here" caused by the door and noticed it was the same room that Kasuke used last night and motioned for Mei to enter first, wanting to surprise him in the most unexpected way he could think of. Kasuke saw the door slide open. He saw an exceedingly beautiful woman that had ankle-length auburn hair with 2 short bangs covering her right eye and 2 long bangs crossing each other over her bust, which Kasuke absently noticed that it rivaled Yoruichi's. She was wearing a long-sleeved, dark blue dress that fell just below her knees. It was close at the front with a zipper but was kept open on the front right side from the waist down. She was wearing what appeared to be mesh clothing underneath that left her shoulders bare and exposed a generous amount of her cleavage to the world, and Kasuke. She was also wearing shorts in the same color as her dress, and Kasuke spotted that she was also wearing mesh leggings, but what drew Kasuke's attention the most was the fact that the woman before him was radiating power in waves. Even more surprising to him was that he could sense Ryatsu from her a great deal more than what he sensed from the Kage Bushin last night. Before Kasuke could say anything, Naruto walked in, and immediately an aura of dominate authoritative power was coming from Naruto, which made them all feel submissive to his mere presence. He also had a powerful essence about him which made everyone around him feel a combination of fear and respect for him. Yoruichi, on the other hand, was having a different reaction from Naruto's presence, as she felt her entire body heat up, and her face to become flushed, as she had never felt something like this from anyone, and she felt heat going to other areas of her body as she took in Naruto's features. She felt the heat continue to increase in intensity when she noticed that the woman that came in with Naruto was looking at her with a knowing smile on her face, which served to only increase the heat in her face. Naruto noticed the looks that came over Kasuke and Tensai's face when he walked into the room and was silently chuckling to himself. Well, Kasuke, do you now understand why I use Kage Bushins for everyday life? Naruto said as Kasuke nodded in a zombie-like fashion as he was still reeling from the aura that Naruto was extruding. So Kasuke, why don't you introduce me to this enticingly beautiful woman, and I'll introduce the princess, that came with me," Naruto said, getting a small blush on Mei's face and another increase to Yoruichi's, which she was sure that by now her entire face was covered by her blush. Kisuke shook his head to clear his mind and looked at Yoruichi and noticed that her face was considerably darker than normal, and was giggling at how she was blushing so much. "That's fine, Naruto-san, as I'm sure some people will be more than happy to talk to you later," Kisuke said in an annoying tone, causing Yoruichi to glare at him, which made him simply giggle more, as she still had the blush on her face though it was dying down. "The person sitting to my right is Yoruichi Shihoin, and as you no doubt will find out, a very fun and interesting person to hang out with," Kisuke said in a too innocent tone that spoke of anything but innocence, making Yoruichi glare harder at him and getting her blush under control. Naruto looked at the woman that Kisuke identified as Yoruichi and saw a very beautiful and exotic woman with a body that rivaled Mei's, but he got a feeling that she and Mei were going to get along without much trouble. "She's very beautiful, Kisuke. I'm pretty sure that we'll get along wonderfully, and judging by her blushing face we'll be getting along very well," Naruto said the last part in his head as he saw Yoruichi's cheeks darken slightly from being called beautiful. "Since you introduced Yoruichi-san, allow me to introduce to you Mei Terumi. Now tell me, Kisuke, how much of the scrolls that I left you have you read exactly?" Naruto said, wanting to know if he could have Mei give a little demonstration to Kisuke. "Well, Naruto-san, I've read the entire scroll that pertained to chakra, and I'm curious as to what the abilities know as Kekkai Genkai, bloodline limits, are. The scroll didn't say anything that described them in detail," Kisuke asked, as that was the most pressing matter on his mind concerning any information that pertained to Naruto. When Kisuke asked that question, Naruto inwardly smirked, as he was going to enjoy what was going to happen. "Actually, Kisuke, Mei-chan here has a Kekkai Genkai, and if you wish she can give a small demonstration. But in order for that to happen we would need someplace with a lot of open space, and she would have to be fighting an opponent in order for you to see the full extent of her Kekkai Genkai's abilities," Naruto asked while he was giving a devious smile inside his head. When Kisuke heard this he became excited and intrigued at what Mei Terumi's Kekkai Genkai. "If you'll both follow me, I'll take you to a place where we'll have plenty of space for your demonstration, Mei-san," Kisuke said as he and everyone else got up and he took them to back room and opening a hatch that had a ladder leading down. "Down the rabbit hole we go," Kisuke said in a childlike tone as he jumped down the hatch, making Naruto gain a small sweat drop at the back of his head, then sighed as he, Mei, Yoruichi, and Tensai followed after Kisuke, where Naruto and Mei found themselves in an extremely large open space with a blue sky that had clouds and a rock-filled terrain. "Okay, I'll admit it, I wasn't expecting something like this," Naruto said as he looked around, not expecting to find something like this. He looked at Mei and saw that she was looking around in surprise as well. "Well, Kisuke, since you're the one that wants to find out what Kekkai Genkai are, I think that you should be the one to fight against Mei-chan," Naruto said as he almost couldn't keep himself from smiling or laughing at what was about to happen. "That's fair enough, I suppose. Now come over here so we can get started, Mei-chan," Kisuke said in a goofy manner which caused Mei to gain a tick mark at the back of her head, and she smiled in a way that felt familiar to Kisuke. "All right, Mr. Urahara, why don't I come over and play with you?" Mei said as she walked until she stood in front of Kisuke while Naruto, Yoruichi, and Tensai were on a nearby outcropping of rock. Mei did a single hand sign that Kisuke recognized as the horse sign before Mei said Yotan, Yokai no Jutsu, lava release, melting apparition technique. Mei shouted before releasing a large amount of lava from her mouth into the air that spread out into a broad thin sheet, making Kisuke panic and temporarily forgot that he could use Shuinpa, flash step, as he was barely able to get out of the way of the lava coming at him. He looked at Mei in complete shock as he saw her doing that familiar smile again, as he now remembered that Unohana smiled the same way and paled. "What's that matter, Mr. Urahara? I thought that you wanted to see what Kekkai Genkai can do," Mei asked in a sickly sweet with what Kisuke and everyone in the Suriidai has come to call the Unohana smile, and continued to launch her Yotan techniques at Kisuke, which started to make him scream. As Naruto watched the show, he laughed as Kisuke was doing his best dodging Mei's continued lava barrage and turned to look at Yoruichi, who at first was shocked to see anyone human or otherwise launch lava from their mouths was now on the ground laughing her ass off when Kisuke's screams turned into high-pitched girl screams. With the Kagebushin, the uniformed Naruto continued walking down the street after the original, and Mei went somewhere else. The Kagebushin continued on towards Karakura High School, where he would have to suffer though this year bore at attending high school of the umpteenth time. When he arrived at the school he was going to be attending, he smirked when he and one Rukia Kichiki waited outside of what would be their home room. So little Shinigami, why aren't you back with all the others of your ilk? The KB Naruto said with a smirk, causing Rukia to get angry over still being called by that title. Why do you insist on me calling that? I've already told you my name is Rukia Kichiki, she said rather loudly before. And how do you know anything about Shinigami anyways, she continued as she whispered, but somehow able to still be loud. When the KB didn't answer her, she was about to speak again when the door opened up, revealing the teacher. Well, Miss Kichiki, since you decided to yell your name out, you can go take your seat by Mr. Kurosaki and I'll introduce the other student, the teacher said as Rukia blushed and Naruto, chuckled to himself before the teacher walked back into the class with Rukia and Naruto trailing behind, and the teacher pointed to where Rukia would be sitting, and Naruto noticed that it was the same boy he saw just before he met Kasuke. Well, now why don't you introduce yourself since someone else decided to do their introduction in the hallway, the teacher said curtly, as she was still peeved at Rukia, causing the Shinigami's blush to increase. Hello there, my name is Naruto Namikaze. Nice to meet you, Naruto said, using his father's name to avoid any jokes. A couple of months had passed since Naruto and his group had arrived in Karakura town, and during that time both Naruto and Mei had been pleasantly to find out that they both could use the Shinigami combat skills, and went to Kasuke's every day and continued to learn each of the individual arts, and when they got to the Zanjutsu, swordsmanship, part, both Naruto and Mei revealed that both of them had their own Zanpakuto, causing Kasuke to ask, more like demand, a series of questions until he finally got an answer that satisfied him. 1. And while Naruto and Mei were learning the Shinigami combat arts, Naruto continued to send a Kagebushin to Karakura High School, and when he discovered that the boy he saw and later found out that his name was Ichigo was the same boy the night that he met Kasuke, Urahara attended the same school and created a multitude of extra Kagebushin so to keep watch whenever the boy left to go purify hollows. Every time that Ichigo left, one of the extra Kagebushin followed after him, so Naruto knew every event that Ichigo went through. From the hollow that led to Ichigo accepting his Shinigami responsibilities to his embarrassing incident with Don Kananji, but it was during the incident before that, Ichigo's encounter with Grand Fisher, that Naruto had intervened when he saw that Ichigo was overcome with rage when he discovered that Grand Fisher killed his mother, and remembered overhearing the conversation that led to Naruto following Ichigo. Flashback. Naruto was sitting in his seat waiting for class to start when heard Ichigo respond to Orihime in a good mood, which made Naruto pay particularly close attention to the conversion that followed. Michiru was the first to say anything. Hey, what's going on with Ichigo? He's never this friendly. She looked over at Orihime. Orihime. Tatsuki? Orihime asked, looking concerned. What's wrong with Ichigo? Tatsuki said, sitting down. Michiru, what's today's date? Michiru looked down at her watch before saying it's June 16th. Why? You're surprisingly perceptive, Orihime, Tatsuki said while looking over at Ichigo with a saddened expression on her face. It took me 3 years to realize that. If you have any urgent business with Ichigo, then take care of it today, because he won't be here tomorrow, Tatsuki said as she looked back at Orihime and Michiru. When Naruto overheard that, he became curious and decided that he would keep an eye on Ichigo tomorrow and waited until school was over and everyone left that the Kagebushin disappeared in a puff of smoke, transferring all of the information that it learned back to the original underground basement of Urahara Soten. The original Naruto was about to use the new Kido spell he just perfected when he received the memories from the Kagebushin that was attending school, making him freeze up for a second, causing Tensai to look at him in confusion. Is there something the matter, Naruto Dano? Tensai asked in confusion when he saw Naruto freeze up. Naruto blinked a couple of times to focus, then looked at Tensai. It's nothing to worry about, but I won't be here tomorrow. Instead, I'll just send a Kagebushin and I'll just have it focus on Kido for that day. Tensai just looked at Naruto confused. And what will you be doing, Naruto Dano, while your Kagebushin is learning new Kido? I'll be keeping an eye on a certain strawberry, Naruto said with a grin as he thought how easy it was going to be to toy with Ichigo Kurosaki. Next day, Naruto had woken up early and quickly finished his normal routine and had grabbed his Zanpakuto before he had gone out, and had followed the Kurosaki family without being noticed, and soon found that they were heading to a graveyard, and an idea popped into his head that made him grin before he disappeared. The Kurosaki family had just arrived at their mother's/spouse's tombstone when they noticed that another man was walking towards them with some flowers in his hands and stopped at the grave that was next to their Mothers, hello, sorry if I'm interrupting anything, I'm just here to pay my respects to a family member. May I ask who you're paying to? The Kurosaki family examined the mysterious man. He was a tall man with tan skin, dark brown eyes, and waist-length black hair that was made into a ponytail, and he had a face that would have made any girl that hit puberty going gaga over, too. The father was the first to respond, sure thing friend, me and my family here are just paying our respects to our dearly departed Masaki-chan. Afterwards the family and I are going to have our year's annual Kurosaki family tombstone domino rally. It's a game that's a full 2.5 hours of tomb trashing action where the winner can make the loser his dog for a whole week. Want to stay and watch? Ishin said while slapping his hand above his head, which served to only embarrass his daughters, make Ichigo facepalm, and give to man a sweat drop on the back of his head. No thank you, I'm fine, the man said as he looked at the kids. Is he always like this? At this they all nodded, where the black-haired girl sighed unfortunately. And worse is that he's our dad, she said, making the adult cry out that his children being mean to him and didn't love him, which caused the mysterious man to just chuckle. After everyone settled down, the mysterious man paid his respects to his family member before walking away. Shortly after the mysterious man was gone, that the two daughters had separated to be on their own, where they came across a hollow and were attacked where it was going to eat them, but Ichigo intervened and separated his sisters from the hollow and had set them against a rock, where soon after he found out that this hollow was called Grand Fissure. He had been overcome with his rage and told Rukia that she wouldn't interfere. Naruto was in a nearby tree watching as Ichigo was fighting Grand Fissure, and was fighting with enough recklessness that it was a surprise that he hadn't died yet, and continued to watch as the fight began to move, forcing Naruto to follow after the two combatants, and sighed while shaking his head when he saw that Ichigo was pierced by Grand Fissure's 3 claws on his left hand, and knew he would have to intervene to keep Ichigo alive, especially when he saw the angler-like appendage atop of Grand Fissure's head turn into an orange-haired woman that made Ichigo freeze, allowing the hollow to prise his chest. Naruto, acting quickly, used henge to change his appearance, then unsheathed his Zanpakuto and quickly disappeared into a Shuinpa flash step. Ichigo looked at Grand Fissure with rage as he saw the wounded body of Grand Fissure seemingly sucked into the lure that resembled his mother, which only made his anger grow, blocking out most of what Grand Fissure was saying, only catching the tail end of it. If one part is injured, then I just jump to the other, and now with me in this body there's no way you can cut me. The boy maybe, but not me. 3, said a voice directly behind Grand Fissure. Then the next second Grand Fissure was cut from his head to his feet. A straight vertical line right between its eyes, where the person then flicked the blood off of his blade. Ichigo's eyes widening in surprise and slight horror at seeing a replica of his mother die. Ichigo looked at the man that had killed Grand Fissure and saw a fair-skinned man with white shaggy hair, red eyes with 2 red marks under his eyes and 1 on his chin. He was wearing azure armor that looked like it belonged on a samurai, for the blade the man was holding was black with a distinct red edge, and its handguard has flower-like edges. Ichigo felt his anger well up inside of him as he could only think of seeing his mother being killed by the man in front of him, completely forgetting that it was actually a hollow, and for some reason strength welled up inside of him, which also made his Ryatsu to start pouring out of him, gaining the man's attention, then attacked him with a overhead strike, but the man simply sidestepped it, and did what looked like a gentle tap to his wounded chest, but in actuality was much stronger. As soon as the tap hit Ichigo's chest, an unbearable pain coursed through him, making his entire body tense up as he fell to his knees, then onto his side as he continued to stare at the white-haired man and saw that he was looking directly back at him. The look in the man's eyes was one that made Ichigo feel like he wasn't anything but a bug to the man, and that's when he felt the powerful dominating aura coming from him, making his eyes go wide in fear as Ichigo started to shiver. The white-haired man continued to look at Ichigo for a few more seconds before sheathing his sword, and turned around and started to walk away when he saw Rukia nearby running over to Ichigo's prone, from where she ran to him until she was within hearing shot of the man. When she heard he's far too weak and reckless, little shinigami. When Rukia heard the little shinigami part, she gasped and turned to look at the white-haired man again, but he disappeared and wasn't anywhere to be seen. In a nearby tree, the white-haired man was watching as Rukia and Ichigo were talking before he was enveloped in a cloud of smoke and dissipated to reveal Naruto before he turned and disappeared into another Shuinpa heading back to Urahara's flashback end. Naruto sighed at how close Ichigo came to killing himself that day, and knew that if he kept going like that he was going to die someday soon. Now Naruto had to deal with all the hollows that were appearing in Karakura town thanks to kid called Yuryu Ishida, who is a special human called a Quincy that acted as mediums and were spiritually aware and could detect hollows. Later Naruto found out that Yuria had some issues with shinigami which resulted in the current predicament. Thankfully Mei was helping out so he wasn't becoming frustrated, but he silently promised himself to seriously hurt the idiot when he got his hands on him. Somewhere across town Yuria was continuing to eradicate hollows when he felt a chill crawl up his spine, making him shiver at the feeling, and for some reason making him dread the next time he meet Naruto alone. Naruto continued to use his Zanpakuto to kill hollows when he noticed that all the nearby hollows took off and started flying, where he looked over and saw the sky cracking, which surprised him, and used Shunpa to appear on the roof of a nearby building that was close to it, and noticed that both Ichigo, Yuryu, and Kisuke's group were there, and before Naruto could take notice of what they were doing, two large white hands pierced the sky and opened it up to reveal a giant white face as the giant monster used its hands and pushed itself out to completely reveal itself to be what Naruto could 5 stories tall and covered in what he would call a black cloak with a row of thin white spikes wrapped around its neck. During the time Naruto was looking at the giant hollow, Mei had Shunpa next to him with her Zanpakuto drawn as she studied the hollow as well. So are we going to intervene, or are we going to let the children handle this, Naruto-kun? Mei said as she noticed the group after she was done looking at the hollow. No, we'll leave it to the kids, besides we can just sit back and enjoy the show. After all, Kisuke's there, so even if they die he'll take care of whatever that hollow is, Naruto said as he unsealed a couple of cushions and handed one to Mei as she sheathed her Zanpakuto and sat down with Naruto and watched as Ichigo decided once again to not use his brain as he did a head-on charge, which failed miserably like they expected. They continued to watch when they sensed that the hollow's Ryatsu was increased, which made both Naruto and Mei curious as to what was about to happen. They saw the hollow charging a red ball of Riryoku, where it then fired it at Ichigo, where he seemed to be holding of the hollow's attack, which surprised both of them. As both Naruto and Mei looked on, both of them sensed Ichigo's rising Ryatsu and were surprised when he sent the red ball of Riryoku back at the hollow, cutting it from its feet to the top of its head, making it roar in pain, where it then grabbed onto the sides of the opening and closed as it retreated back inside. When Naruto and Mei saw that Ichigo had somehow made the giant hollow retreat, they decided that it was over, where Naruto resealed the cushions and the two disappeared with Shunpa. The next day, night time, Naruto was running and jumping along rooftops heading towards where he felt Ichigo fighting 2 shinigami that he felt earlier that night. Naruto landed on one of the houses that gave him a decent view of Ichigo's little fight, and immediately knew that Ichigo was outmatched when he saw the red-haired shinigami pushing Ichigo back easily, and Ichigo received a cut on his shoulder, then fell to his knees. Naruto sighed at seeing how fight was going and knew he was going to have to intervene again, and when he saw the red-haired shinigami actually used his Shuriken on Ichigo, Naruto used Henge transformation to change his appearance into the one he met Ichigo with, then disappeared into a Shunpa. Ichigo was laying on the ground, barely able to move from the attack. That the man that Rukia called Byakuya was looking at the group as they started to walk away from him was when he saw a shadow over him and struggled to look up when he saw the same man that had killed Grand Fisher kneeling down and looking at him. Well, don't you look pathetic even after I told the little shinigami that you were too weak and reckless? Looks like she didn't do anything to fix that. Besides, I want to have some fun with the 2 shinigami over there by the Senkamin World Penetration Gate. When the 2 shinigami hear a new voice, they turn to see that it was coming from the spot where the prone form of the human that they thought was going to die, only for Rukia to go wide-eyed at seeing the same man from the Grand Fisher incident. The other 2 stayed silent for a second before the redhead looked at the white-haired man. Who or what are you? From what I can tell, there shouldn't be this many humans that can see shinigami. The white-haired man looked over at the shinigami before disappeared into a Shunpa that they couldn't follow, where the startled gasp of surprise behind them made them turn around to see the white-haired man holding Rukia by the waist in his arms, then disappeared again, making their eyes go wide, and quickly looked at the human and saw that the white-haired man had set Rukia down on her rump right next to Ichigo. How about this instead? The 2 of you fight me for a total of 10 minutes. Making it 5 apiece. If one of you can give me even 1 wound, then I'll tell you every secret about me, and not only that, but I'll also give you back the little shinigami as well. By the way, name's Tobirama. Send you care to tell me what you 2 names are? The man now identified as Tobirama said, and asked the 2 shinigamis, and hide his surprise at the lack of outburst from Rukia at being called little shinigami again. The two shinigami looked at Tobirama in surprise before the redhead started laughing. You must think that you're all that to believe that you can take on the two of us by yourself. You might want to take a look at the human that's on the ground behind you. He couldn't beat the two of us. What makes you think that you can? When Tobirama heard this, he started to chuckle, which soon turned into a full-blown laugh. Oh, it's just the fact that I know that the two of you are wearing a Genti Rain, soul limiting symbol, and because of that you two won't be able to put up much of a fight against me. When the two Shinigami and Rukia heard Tobirama say something that should only be known by Shinigami, shocked them deeply. Only Shinigami are supposed to have that information, so how did you get it? And I know you're not a Shinigami. I would have remembered there being two Shinigami with white hair. So you are you? The redhead practically shouted at Tobirama. I told you before, if either one of you can wound me once, then I'll tell you everything about me, and whether you actually succeed or not, I'll let you take the little Shinigami with you. So really the only thing you'll lose is just information on me. Now, Tobirama said as he unsheathed his Zanpakuto, shall we get this little game out of the way, and are you going to tell me your name, or am I going to have to call you Pineapple Head? Tobirama said with a small smirk which grew when he saw the red head gain a tick mark. Renji Abarai? And I'm going to make you regret thinking that you can take on the two of us and not expect to get wounded. The man Tobirama now knew as Renji said. Renji pointed his Zanpakuto at Tobirama before raising his Zanpakuto above his head. Now roar. Zabumaru, 5, Renji shouted as he charged at Tobirama and swung Zabumaru, making the entire blade extend, turning it into a bladed whip that didn't seem to be limited to distance, as it raced towards Tobirama, who simply raised his Zanpakuto in front of him and blocked Renji's attack easily, then knocked it skyward, then started to walk in Renji's direction. You're going to need to do better than that if you want to wound me, Renji Abarai, though if your friend over there were to join in, I'm pretty sure that the two of you would be able to at least give me a nice workout, Tobirama said calmly as he looked at Byakuya and Renji before he charged at Renji with speed that surprised everyone present and thrust his Zanpakuto at Renji's chest. Renji was barely able to retract enough blade segments to stop the blade from piercing his chest, and then pushed the blade off, and then slashed at him, making the segments that were still retracting to whip around at him. Tobirama ducked under Renji's Zabumaru, then slashed at his left shoulder, but the blade didn't even touch his clothes before he disappeared into a Shunpa. Renji heard that clashing of swords behind him and turned to see that Tobirama was now fighting Byakuya, although calling it a fight would be a stretch as Byakuya was completely on the defensive and barely avoiding Tobirama's blade. When Tobirama saw that both Renji and Byakuya were barely able to even avoid his Zanpakuto, let alone put up a decent fight, he began to grow bored and started to purposely make mistakes, hoping that they would both take advantage of them and start making the fight more interesting. Tobirama had been fighting both Renji and Byakuya for close to 10 minutes now, and they hadn't given him one wound, while the two of them were sporting numerous wounds and cuts over their bodies and were breathing heavily while they both glared back at him. Time's almost up. You have enough time for one more attack, so choose how to attack me wisely, Tobirama taunted Renji and Byakuya. Both Renji and Byakuya used Shunpa to appear before Tobirama, with Byakuya in front of him thrusting his Zanpakuto at his chest, while Renji was behind him aiming a strike at his waist. And to everyone present, and to their utmost shock, Tobirama didn't move, block, or anything as Byakuya's blade pierced his chest and Renji severed his top half from his bottom. Their shock increased and confusion was added when his body, both upper and lower, turned to water. Renji and Byakuya just stared at the puddle of water in confusion, wondering just what happened when they heard clapping from the nearby wall and turned to see Tobirama sitting there with a bag and knew immediately that the man before them was completely different from the one that they were just fighting. The man before them radiated an aura of dominant authoritative power coming from him which reminded them of Yamamoto. That was a very entertaining show that you two put on, but sadly time's up and you need to take the little Shinigami back to the Soul Society. We'll meet again, I'm sure of it, Tobirama said as he walked over to where Ichigo was and saw that he had passed out, causing him to sigh before he turned to Rukia as she was still standing in the spot where his Misa Bunshin, water clone, left her. She was staring at him in fear and couldn't move. You just going to stand there looking like an idiot, or am I going to have to actually go through with taking you to those two over there? His voice seemed to snap Renji and Byakuya out of their surprise caused by Tobirama's aura, where Byakuya quickly Shunpa grabbed Rukia, then Shunpa back to Renji, where they quickly entered the Senkamen before Tobirama changed his mind about letting them just take Rukia. Tobirama just looked as the Senkamen gate vanished, and a second later a puff of smoke enveloped him to reveal it to be Naruto, who was now laughing lightly, then looked at Ichigo, knowing this boy he's going to try and save her, and in order for him to not die means I'll have to go with him. I'm definitely going to be having some fun when we get to the Suriidai, Naruto said as he picked up Ichigo and used Shunpa to take him to Urahara's. Naruto appeared in front of Urahara's store with Ichigo hanging over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes and his blood going down his shoulder and staining Naruto's clothes. Walking forward, Naruto slid the door open to see Kasuke with Tensai, who had medical supplies, and took Ichigo off Naruto's shoulder and began fixing him. The boys Hakusui, Soul Sleep, and Saketsu, Binding, Chain, were destroyed by the little Shinigami's big brother Byakuya. He also brought Renji Aburai. The only question I have is, what are you going to do about the boy? After watching the boy for a couple of months, I know that based on his personality he's going to try and save her, Naruto said to Kasuke, and he was being serious. You're right, Naruto-san. Kurosaki is that type of person, so I'm going to help him regain his Shinigami powers, although I'm curious, what are you and Mei-san going to be doing during that time? Kasuke asked, being generally curious as to what an immortal man did to let time slip by. Naruto looked directly at Kasuke. I need you to give me all the data you have on the current Shinigami Taichos, from their names to their Zanpakutos, including Shirkai and Bankai. When Kasuke heard Naruto request that information, his eyes widened in surprise before he stared at him for a second. And why do you want that particular information, Naruto-san? Naruto gave Kasuke a smile that sent a small shiver up his spine. So that when I accompany that boy, I'll be the entire Godai 13's worst nightmare.